Okay, so this video's been wanting to do this video for a while here. Need to take a look at my fears and concerns with Final Fantasy VII Remake. Now, before I begin on this, just got to let you guys know, Final Fantasy VII is one of my all-time top RPGs. It is up there with Xenogears and Chrono Trigger. I think that game is great. Granted, I do see why everybody hates it. You got Cloud as being an emo and kind of being like a little bit of a bitch that Sephiroth is able to be. Of course, beware of spoilers because the game's old at this point. But you have Sephiroth able to manipulate Cloud because he's just such a dumbass and everything. So I see where people have issues, but I still love the game. Mostly, I mean, the story's good, but it's mostly for the systems that they have in place. That was the one that had the chocobo breeding. That was the one that had some of the greatest summon animations that you could see, and just great characters and a bunch of other things. Hell, one of the first games to ever kill off a character that I can remember and permanently kill them off. I mean, you had Chrono Trigger did that, but you could bring Chrono back, which was, I still love that game, but that's another video. But anyway, I've already played through the Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode 1. I have almost platinumed it. Not probably going to go through and platinum it because some of those trophies just seem to be a pain in the ass for it. But either way, I've played through it. Now, one thing I will say, and this is a big controversy on the internet, I do not like the new stuff that they're adding because it's basically Nomura being Nomura. It's Kingdom Hearts dumb stuff that's there. He's one of those guys to me that thinks that he is very intellectual and knows how to make these deep stories, but they're really not. It's kind of like one of those deceptive, what's that deceptive pool thing where it's looks deep but is extremely shallow. I'm actually replaying through Kingdom Hearts. That's why I'm able to say this. I'm playing through the collection on the Xbox. And having played through him, first of all, he made up and added stuff as he went along. A lot of the stuff they added with like the nobodies and all this other stuff, he added it in to keep the sequels going and to make more and more money. That's what it's usually been about. He didn't have any of these stories planned from the beginning. I mean, one slight example I could say is the nobodies. If those are created when someone becomes a Heartless, why weren't they in the first game? Oh, that's because you needed something new to add in. So let's not think that Nomura is some great grand storyteller, because Kingdom Hearts is confusing because he added shit in later. It makes no fucking sense. So moving on from that, him editing Final Fantasy VII is not my idea of something that should be done. Now, I have looked online, I've heard all the arguments where people will say, like, oh, I like Final Fantasy VII's story, but why would I want to see the same thing again? I'm like, well, why do you rewatch an old movie? Because you enjoy the story, the characters, and everything that happens. So to me, people that say, I like Final Fantasy VII's story, but I don't want to play it again, you don't like Final Fantasy VII's story then. You can't say that you're a fan of something and then say, oh, well, I'm a fan of this, but we need to change this. I hate to say it, it's kind of the reason we have issues now in the comics industry and the gaming industry is people came in and co-opted. They came in and they said, well, I love comic books, but we need to change this, or this needs to be more diverse, or this, or this. Then you're not a fan. If you need to come in and change things, you're not a fan. That's just the way it is. If people want the change in the Final Fantasy VII story, that's fine, but that means you weren't a fan of Final Fantasy VII's story. I am. To me, it's like going back and watching an old movie like Predator. I don't want the story to be different. I like the movie Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger. I like that movie. That's why we rewatch it. With Final Fantasy VII, I just wanted to replay the classic story with updated graphics and character voices. That's all I wanted. But unfortunately, Nomura has different ideas, and I think it comes from the fact that it's almost that you can be your own worst critic. Is he probably looked back and had said, like, well, I never liked the way I did the story here. I never liked the way that I did this. It's like, okay, I understand you don't like it. It's your creation. But there are millions of people that liked it the way that it was. So, granted, it like I said, it is his creation. He has every right to change it the way that he wants to. But then again, Final Fantasy VII, he didn't make it on his own. There were other people that helped it along. And then the other main problem is the changes that he is making to the story are dumb. Again, spoilers. Most of the changes don't happen until towards the end of episode 1, but they are so drastic and so stupid that it's not even worth it. It's like, okay, so now you've changed the story to where Sephiroth from the future at the end of Advent Children No, not Evan Children. I think that was the name of it. You guys know what I mean, the movie. So that Sephiroth traveled back in time, which I'm not even going to get into. I hate time travel in stories. It's such a cop out. It's such an easy cop out to change things. It's like, oh, well, how do we change the story? Let's do time travel. Or we could do it was all a dream. How about that? That's the two lazy ways to do things. But now we have it to where Sephiroth time travels back to fuck with Cloud because he's trying to change the future. That's stupid and lazy. That's not something new or anything. Like I said, it's not hard to retcon something when you use time travel or it was all a dream. Try to think outside the box. Think of something different. Of course, I don't want him to think outside the box. I want my Final Fantasy VII story. Because I will admit, when I was playing that remake and it got to the point where it was following the story and the words, not exactly. I mean, you do have to change the dialogue to update it for, the new times and everything like that. But man, when it was going and it was following it, I was grinning ear to ear. Loved it. Couldn't get enough of it. And then the new shit came in and I'm like, what the hell is this crap? This is just dumb. Like, it's just dumb. Like I said, it's just time travel. It's like, okay, again, you couldn't think of anything better? There's no other way for you to do a complex story. You had to use time travel to retcon things. That's lazy writing, in my opinion. It just seems like lazy writing. And the other thing that will get me about this is that he is trying to, in a way, Kingdom Hearts up Final Fantasy VII, if that makes any sense. You can't say that the battle engine, yes, I kind of like the battle engine. Unfortunately, there's not much strategy involved. Yes, I've done all the things. I've seen the videos. They're like, whoa, well, if you change your equipment, you do this and everything. It's still not much strategy involved. It's more or less about reflex actions with dodging and shit like that. There's some strategy, but not at the same amount that it was with active time battles that they used to be. Now, I'm not saying we should have done active time battles. That's a little bit dated. It's kind of like, for me, like with World of Warcraft, how dated that is compared to other MMOs out there. But the battle system they have now is Kingdom Hearts. You move the D-pad to select different things that you want to do there. You're mainly stuck on attack, things like that. It's very, and then again, I don't know if, like I said, spoilers in this, but when you get to the last battle in episode 1, oh my God, it's literally right out of Kingdom Hearts. I mean, you're flying through the air like in Kingdom Hearts, and the cinematics, everything about it just screamed out Kingdom Hearts. I'm like, nothing about this feels like Final Fantasy VII. Nothing about it. I was like, Sephiroth's here, but it still feels like a Kingdom Hearts battle. Kind of reminded me of like the battle against Ansem. So it's just kind of like, this is just, he's throwing too much Kingdom Hearts in it. And I do like Kingdom Hearts. I don't think they're perfect games. They have a shit ton of flaws, but I don't want that for Final Fantasy VII. I want my Final Fantasy VII to be Final Fantasy VII. That's what I want. And that's the problem with this new battle engine is that, like I said, it's not much in terms of strategy. There is, like I said, there's because people are going to tell me, well, you just have to change your equipment and your items. Yes, we can do that. And that does come into play sometimes. But generally, it's about your reflexes. It's, about like you're just basically smashing the button and then dodge, and then smash the button, dodge, block, switch characters, blah, blah, blah. It's just not, to me, it's not very I keep saying it, but strategy. To me, RPGs, you have to have some strategy. As an example, there was my one buddy a long time ago when I was younger. He was playing, I believe it was Lunar, and he ended up getting stuck on a boss, and it was one of those bosses that games love to throw at you where it's like you can't leave to level grind, like you're literally stuck in this area, and he was afraid he had to restart and kept dying. So I said, let me try it. I gave it a shot, and through my strategy, was able to beat the boss when he wasn't able to. Just in terms of using different equipment, using different items, all this other shit, using special moves at certain times. And that was more involved because it's an active time battle, so I can, look at my moves and take time, kind of like chess. With an action battle system, you can't really strategize. I mean, you can, but you can't at the same time. You can't really do it on the fly. And that's the other thing that worries me, is the game seems to be going too much Kingdom Hearts. Nomura's, he's done Kingdom Hearts for so many years that it's like that's what he views that his game should be like. And then the other thing that I was going to talk about, too, that I'm worried about with the remake is how many episodes it's going to be. I know everybody is assuming it's going to be 3 episodes, but A, They have never stated it was going to be 3 episodes. There's no info stating it's going to be 3 episodes, so I would not hold that to them. Second of all, if you go off of the way, unless they really ramp up the time on this is going to be like 5 or 6 episodes at a minimum. Because you got to figure, everybody that played the original Final Fantasy VII knows that Midgar is a very small portion of the actual whole game. In fact, leaving Midgar is when the game really opens up. I mean, that's when you get to the world map, you start like getting chocobos and like all this other cool stuff. That's when the game gets really good, is when you leave Midgar. They just spent an entire... I'm trying to remember how long it was if you just go through the story. Maybe about like 20 hours, something like that. They spent 20 hours just on Midgar. One episode is for literally about 1/10 of the game. So you tell me how they're going to do the rest of the game in 3 episodes. I just don't see it happening. Now, some people will say, yeah, Midgar was disc 1 basically for the original, and then disc 2, and then you ended up to... I think, it's been a while since I played it, but I think disc 3 took over when you made it to the crater impact site, when you were going to, like, not confront Sephiroth for the final time, but the first time you get there, I think is when it ended. So, granted, I will say it is possible for them to do that. If that's the case, we're not going to see episode 2 for another, 2 years probably, because that's a lot to put into an episode. And that's the thing, is I think they want to pump these out quickly and efficiently. Which also means that I'm guessing, I'm really worried that this is going to be 5 or 6 episodes, and that is such a bad precedent for gaming right now. That's the other thing I'm worried about, the precedent that this is showing. Like I said, I am super excited for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I was doing backflips when I heard it was announced, basically, originally. But this sets a bad precedent. We already have shitty-ass microtransactions in a lot of our games that were started very innocuously. Now we have a game that originally was $60 for a good, 60 to 100-hour game, depending on how many of the side quests you did. And now we're paying, let's see. Okay, so let's see. If they break it up into, let's just say 3 episodes. We'll go easy. We'll say 3 episodes that they wanted to do. That's going to end up being $180. $180 for what used to be $60. So already you're getting screwed. Now, if they take it up to 4 or 5 episodes, you're getting even crazier then. Now you're looking at $300 for the complete game. What are they going to do? When the actual game comes to the other, to the Xbox, later on, when they were talking about it, is it going to be $300 for the whole complete package? Because that's how much it was. This is a bad precedent, and we buy it because of nostalgia. Granted, I'm basically bad at this too, because I did buy it because it was oh my god, it's Final Fantasy VII Remake. But we really should, as gamers, try to make a stand on this and say, you know what, screw you, I'll buy it when all the episodes are out. Now, granted, I know I probably won't be able to do that either, but here's the thing. I have actually changed after playing Final Fantasy VII Remake Episode 1. I will not be buying Episode 2 when it first comes out. I need to see what they're doing with it. If the story continues to derail off into left field, I'm probably actually going to be done playing it. I don't like the new direction they've taken the story. Where oh, this has all happened before, and you've got the fate ghosts that are coming around and stuff. It's this all feels like horrible Kingdom Hearts, like a bad Kingdom Hearts story. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like Final Fantasy VII in the least bit. And you changing slight things again, spoilers, when in episode 1 where, oh my god, Barrett died. That's new. It's it's kind of weird that was new, but then you retconned it immediately. So what was the point? Why'd you even show him die if the fate ghosts come in and fix it? It's just bad the way that he's doing it. And then in the end, you see that Zack's alive, and you're just but wait, that's a different dimension or a different timeline. It's oh god, now you're really getting into the Kingdom Hearts bullshit, making it complicated just to be complicated. The original story had its nice twists and turns and some depth to it, especially dealing with Sephiroth. You don't need to add this complicated bullshit of different timelines and all this crap. Nobody wants it. I shouldn't say nobody wants this. Some people want this, but to me, I've seen the diehard Final Fantasy VII fans do not want this. It's bad. Now, the one thing I can think of that would be really cool, but this will mean we're going to have to wait even longer on that damn game, is they could do it to where you could choose. Now, that would be awesome. I will applaud the hell out of that if he's able to do that, to where you get to make choices to either follow the original storyline or branch off from it. That would be awesome. I would be through the roof if they were able to do that. But again, that's literally like making two games, because you're going to have two different paths and two different stories. So, and we've seen how far they've deviated from the original story, so it's going to get even more. So I don't see them doing that. So unfortunately for me, like I said, I'm going to have to wait on 2 to see what they're doing with the story for multiple reasons. One, it's not going to spoil me because, like I said, I hate the new stuff and I've already played the original. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait to see, one, if they're sticking more with the original story or if they're going to go even further off the rails. Or 2, how far episode 2 goes. If it only goes to like the Golden Saucer or something, I'm going to be like, nah, I'm waiting. Because if it just goes to the Golden Saucer, I know anybody that's played 7 is going to say the same thing, that's insane. That means it's going to be 5 episodes. Easily. So, as I said, I am extremely excited for this Final Fantasy VII Remake because it is one of my all-time favorite games. I love seeing them in great graphics. I love most of the voice acting. Some of the voice actors, especially Aerith, is just horrible. So monotone. And Barrett is definitely a walking stereotype. But anyway, I am still very wary of everything that this is doing. One, it's setting a bad precedent for video games with this episodic bullshit. If you're going to do episodic bullshit, do not charge $60 for it. That's just insane. It's not a full game. They'll say it's a full game, 20, 30 hours or whatever. I played many RPGs. Episode 1 did not feel like a full game. They lied to us about that. It does not feel like a full game because the story just cuts off. Like, how is that a full game if you ended on a cliffhanger? That's not a full game. That's like, wait for the sequel. And then 2, like I said, you also have him deviating from the original story. So if you're going to remake the game, but you're going to change the story, what's the point, in my opinion? You know, some people will say, I don't want to see the original story. I'm like, then you weren't a fan of it. Like I said, that'd be like going back to watch the original, like Predator, insert any movie that you like that you've watched multiple times, even if it's like Endgame or the Marvel movies. Do you want the story changed? No, you wouldn't keep watching it if you wanted the story changed. You enjoy the story. Like I said, there's certain parts that can be redone, like bad translations from the original and shit like that. But to completely, like I said, go off the rails is just throwing me off, and it worries me. So, let me know what you guys think in the comments below, if you agree with me, if I'm a jackass, whatever, and I'll talk to you guys later.